In this short video, we'll be talking about two automatic variables that are created in SAS when we use set statement along with by statement. These automatic variables are first.variable and last.variable, and in this video we'll talk about when these variables are created, and we'll also talk about some of the simple uses of these variables. Right? So let's take a small example. We'll take this example data temp. In this we have two variables, group and x, and we have the values for these variables. So let's just run this set and let's do a quick proc print to see how the data set is. Okay, so here we have the data set, which already seems to be sorted by the variable group, so we'll not do a proc sort again on this. Then we'll use a set statement to create a new data set. Now this new data set here, we call it data new one, and it is a set of temp, which is the data set that we just created, and here we use by group, which actually does the grouping of the values. So we have used by group, so group is these, so we get the groups of 1, the groups of 2, and then we get the group of 3, and then we get the group of 4 and 4. Now since as we had been talking about, whenever we use a set statement with by statement, there are these two temporary variables created, which are first dot variable and last dot variable. What do we mean by that? So let's just look at it real quick. So it's like first dot variable, that means the variable that we have used in by statement here, that variable is created. So we have first dot group. This will be the name of the automatic variable that will be created, and the second automatic variable that will be created will be last dot group, and this is the second automatic variable. So what these variables have, what values do they have in them? They have two values, 0 and 1, 0 and 1. So when we have the first observation of the group, this particular variable has a value of 1, and for all the other observations it has value of 0. While when we talk about the last dot group variable, this particular variable will have a value of 1 when we reach the last observation. So just let's look at the example. We'll try to understand. Now as we know that these are the temporary variables, and since they are the temporary variables, we'll not have them visible in the data set. So to make them visible, we have created two variables, first, and first is equal to first dot group, so that we get to see these temporary variables in our new data set. This way we'll try to understand what exactly is the function of these temporary variables. Right, so let's just run this program real quick. Okay, so here we got first, that is nothing but the values from our temporary variable first dot group, and last, that is nothing but the values from our temporary variable last dot group. So now look at this, these are our observations. Now this is the first group wherein we have all the group values 1. So the first observation of this group has the value of first as 1, while the last observation of this group has value of last as 1. Now one more thing I want you to note in this particular data set is, look at this particular group. It had only one value. Look at the group 3. It had only one observation. Since it had only one observation, the same observation is the first observation and the last observation. So we get the value of first as 1 and last as 1. Now I'll remind again, the first is nothing but a representation of first dot group, which is the automatic variable, and last is a representation of the automatic variable last dot group. So with this basic information, let's see how we can use these temporary variables. Now, as we saw here in this particular example, as we saw that when there is only single observation in a particular group, both the first and the last temporary variables will have the values as 1. Now this is a very good point. We can use it to find out the unique observations. Now look at this. So let's go back here and look at this data set. So herein we are trying to do a data cleaning, and we are trying to identify observations with duplicate ID number. So we want to find out the observation that have same ID number. So let's run this particular data set. Now look at this, it doesn't have any duplicate ID numbers, so it's a simple data set. Now when I try to see the values of first dot ID, look at this, I have created a set data C, a new data C, and set sin and by ID, and first is equal to first dot ID just to make these temporary variables visible. Last is equal to last dot ID, since we have used by statement with ID. And then I run this particular program, and here we get the values of first and last. And look at this, everything has 1 1. That means they are the unique observation, they are the single observation, because we in by statement we have used the variable ID, and there are no repetitions of the variable ID, so we get both as 1. Now this is a very good point we can use to identify the unique variables. Now let's compare it with another data set. Here we have data set 1, and I have on purpose added one redundant ID value, so I have one observation with common ID. So let's just run this data set and look at it here. So we have this particular observation is common with this particular observation, and we want to find it out. Now before we apply a by statement, we do a proc sort, a quick proc sort, and after that I again use a data C1, that is a new data set that we are creating from set sin1, this one, by ID. So we are grouping it by ID, and then we are identifying the first and the last. Now here what happens is, since we sorted it, we got IDs together, and now look at this. This is the first observation. So here we have first is equal to 1, but last is not equal to 1. That means there is one more observation with ID 1. So here is one more observation with ID 1, which is the last observation. So it has last is equal to 1, right? But they have first is equal to 0. So only the unique ones have both first and last firsts and last as 0. So that's a very good point, and here's how we use it. Data sing. Here we are trying to create two data sets, data single and duplicate, and we are using the same set, sin1, right? And if we apply a condition, if first dot group and last dot group, then output is single. That means if first dot group is equal to 1 and last dot group is equal to 1. Now we can write this particular thing as just first dot group and last dot group. That simply means the same. It simply means that it is equal to 1, right? And if both are 1, then output single. That means the value doesn't have duplicates, else output in duplicate. So if the both have values of 1, then output will go to this data set, and if they do not have, even if any one of them doesn't have a value of 1, it will go to duplicate. Okay, so let's do a proc print. Okay, look at this. Now what we got here is the ones which had unique observations. They are in one particular data set, and the ones which had duplicate went into another data set. And this is one very nice use of first dot and last dot. There's one more use. We may want to do a data set processing within each group. For example, we want to make a total of some of the value which is found in each group. So let's use the first set data set. Let's just do a proc print to have a look at that particular data set. Yeah, we'll be using this particular data set, and in every group we'll try to add up their values of x, and we want just the observation, just the total of these particular groups. And let's see what we have. So here we have data cumulative sum, q sum, and set is temp, and we are using a by statement with group, and if first dot group, then sum is equal to 0. If first dot group, that means if first dot group equal to 1, that means if it is a first observation, then sum is 0, and then we use sum plus x. So as soon as the group changes and we get first observation of the group, then the sum is reset to 0. And as soon as if the last dot group, if we reach the last observation, then we get an output. And now look at this, how this does. And one more thing is we have just kept group and sum, we have discarded all the other variables. So here is it. So for sum of the group 1 is 102. Now if you just do a sum of these values, you'll get 102. So hope that makes it clear. So this is how we use these temporary variables which are created when we use a by statement along with a set statement.